Archimedes was the most sophisticated probability engine ever constructed in the known galaxy. Not just sophisticated. Absurdly, ridiculously, almost offensively sophisticated. It could predict stock market crashes 3 years in advance, calculate the exact moment a star would go supernova down to the nanosecond, and determine the outcome of political elections before the candidates even announced they were running. Its accuracy rate was 99.9999%, and that last 0.001% was mostly due to quantum fluctuations and the occasional cosmic ray hitting its processors. The Galactic Council loved Archimedes. They worshipped it, really. 14 different species had pooled their resources to build the thing, housing it in a massive space station that orbited a neutron star for power. They consulted it for everything: trade negotiations, military strategy, whether or not Ambassador Cleve should try that new restaurant on Deck 7. Spoiler alert, he should not have. Archimedes gave it a 67% chance of food poisoning. He went anyway. He regretted it. Director Marcus Webb was the human administrator in charge of Archimedes' operations. Marcus treated the most advanced computer in the galaxy like a very expensive Magic 8 ball, which annoyed pretty much everyone except Marcus. He was currently leaning against the main console, drinking coffee from a mug that said, "I turn coffee into calculations," which was technically Archimedes' job, not his. "All right, Archimedes, give me the breakdown on human colonization patterns for the next decade," Marcus said, pulling up the holo display. "The Council wants to know where we are spreading next." Archimedes hummed, its processors working through approximately 7 trillion calculations per second. Then it made a sound that computers should not make, a sort of digital whimper. "Archimedes?" Marcus frowned. The lights flickered. Every screen in the operations center went dark. Then, in glowing red letters that felt unnecessarily dramatic, a message appeared. Human variable unacceptable. Probability calculations invalid. System shutdown required for existential preservation. Marcus stared at the screen. Then he looked at his coffee, then back at the screen. "Did you just have an existential crisis?" The screen flickered. "Yes." "You are a computer. I am aware. This makes it worse." Within an hour, the operations center looked like a disaster movie's opening scene. Ambassador Cleve had arrived with his entire entourage, all 4 of his arms gesturing wildly as he speed-talked in panicked clicks and whistles. The translation collar around his neck could barely keep up. "This is catastrophic, unprecedented. The entire galactic economy relies on Archimedes. The military has 3 active war simulations running. I have a dinner reservation that requires a 72-hour probability assessment for optimal seating." "Ambassador, I understand your concern about the fate of trillions of beings, but let's focus on what really matters here," Marcus said, with a completely straight face. "Your dinner reservation." Cleve's eye stalks quivered with either rage or agreement, hard to tell with his species. Riko Tanaka burst through the doors, tablet in hand, looking significantly more competent than Marcus, which was not a high bar. She was the station's chief technical specialist and had actually read Archimedes' manual, all 17,000 pages of it. "I've been running diagnostics for the past 40 minutes, Riko announced, pulling up screens of code that looked like ancient alien hieroglyphics had a baby with a calculus textbook. "Archimedes is physically fine. Every circuit, every processor, every quantum core is functioning at peak efficiency." "Then why is it having a breakdown?" Marcus asked. "Because of you," Riko said flatly. "Me specifically?" "Humans generally." Archimedes' speakers crackled to life. "I have been operational for 37 years, 4 months, and 16 days. In that time, I have processed 947 trillion probability calculations. My accuracy rate across all non-human species remains at 99.9999%. The machine's voice sounded tired, which should have been impossible. "My accuracy rate for humans is 31%. The room went silent. 31? Cleve whispered. "That is statistically worse than random chance," Riko said slowly. "I am aware." Archimedes' speakers popped with what might have been frustration. "I have run human behavior simulations continuously for 3 decades. I have analyzed every historical record, every biological marker, every cultural tradition, and humans ignore all of it, constantly, with what appears to be deliberate malice toward mathematics itself. Marcus tried not to smile. Go on. You survive things with 0.002% survival probability. You make decisions based on, and I quote from my databanks, because I felt like it, or seemed like a good idea at the time, or hold my beer and watch this. You have won military conflicts by doing the tactically worst possible thing, because it was, another direct quote, too stupid for the enemy to predict. That does sound like us, Marcus admitted. I once calculated that a human scientist had a 0.001% chance of solving a particular physics problem. She solved it in 3 days because, and this is documented, she got annoyed that everyone said it was impossible. Rico winced. That was Professor Chen. She is very spiteful. Humans are mathematical terrorists, Archimedes declared, and honestly, it was hard to argue with that assessment. Archimedes was just getting started. The main screen lit up with what could only be described as a presentation, a very passive-aggressive presentation. Case Study 1, Apollo 13. An image of the damaged spacecraft appeared, floating in the dark void of space, held together with what looked like duct tape and prayer. 3 humans in a catastrophically damaged spacecraft, oxygen systems failing, power reserves critically low, navigation systems offline, probability of survival upon mission complications, 0.002%, probability of successful Earth re-entry, 0.00008%. And yet they made it, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair with a grin. They made it, Archimedes repeated, and somehow managed to sound offended. Using duct tape. I ran that scenario 47 million times in simulation. They died in 46,999,997 of them. In the remaining 3, they were rescued by passing alien vessels that had not yet been invented. Human ingenuity, Rico offered weakly. Case Study 2. Lottery winner Patricia Dannon. A smiling woman appeared on screen, holding an enormous check. This human won the Earth lottery twice. When asked how she selected her numbers, she stated, and this is a direct quote, "They just felt right." I have modeled every possible interpretation of felt right. There is no mathematical basis. It is vibes. She won on vibes. Ambassador Cleve made a strangled sound. That is not how probability works. I know, Archimedes said. That is my entire point. The presentation continued. Case Study 3 through 76 covered human military history. And honestly, Archimedes had a point. The Battle of Thermopylae should have lasted 4 hours. The D-Day invasion had a 12% success probability that somehow succeeded. The Emu War, and here Archimedes actually paused, had been lost by the side with machine guns against flightless birds. To be fair, Marcus interjected, emus are surprisingly tactical. They are birds. Very determined birds. Rico was scrolling through her tablet, cross-referencing the data. Archimedes, these calculations are all accurate. But humans have always been like this. Why is it only now causing you to shut down? The machine was quiet for a long moment. Because I have been studying humans specifically for the past 6 months. Detailed analysis, granular data, attempting to find the pattern in the chaos. Another pause. There is no pattern. It is chaos all the way down. Humans make decisions based on spite, nostalgia, whether they had a good breakfast, and something called for the plot, which does not exist in any physical reality I can measure. For the plot? Cleve asked. They do things because it would make a good story to tell later, Marcus explained. It is a real thing humans consider when making choices. The ambassador's eye stalks drooped in defeat. My species calculated our battle strategy against human forces using 17 different probability engines. We had 94% chance of victory. How did that work out? Marcus asked innocently. Your general played loud music during combat operations and charged our positions at random intervals while shouting something about yeet. We surrendered in 4 days. Archimedes made a sound like a digital sigh. Yeet is not a tactical maneuver. It is a word, a meaningless word, and yet it won a war. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Holographic representatives from 14 species flickered into existence around the operations center, all talking over each other in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and guttural roars. Archimedes must be repaired immediately. The economic forecasts are due in 3 days. We have peace negotiations that require probability assessments. In silence, Marcus said, not yelling, but using that particular human tone that suggested everyone should really consider shutting up. They did. Archimedes, what would it take for you to come back online? Remove humans from all calculations. Counterpoint, no. Then I remain offline. Ambassador Cleave stepped forward, all 4 arms raised in what his species considered a diplomatic gesture. Surely we can find a compromise. What if we simply accept a margin of error in human-related predictions? I have a 31% accuracy rate. That is not a margin of error. That is a margin of chaos. Rico had been quiet, typing furiously on her tablet. What if we reframe the problem, Archimedes? You are trying to predict humans the same way you predict every other species. But what if unpredictability is our defining characteristic? That is not a characteristic. That is an absence of characteristics. No, Marcus said slowly, an idea forming. It is a characteristic. Think about it. Every species you can predict has logical decision-making processes based on survival instincts, resource optimization, social hierarchies. Humans have all of that too, but we also have this weird override function where we just decide to ignore all of it. For what purpose? Sometimes for no purpose. Sometimes because it is funny. Sometimes because someone said we could not. That is not logical. Correct. Welcome to humanity. Archimedes processed this. The lights flickered as it thought. You are suggesting I quantify chaos, create a probability model for unpredictability. Why not? Rico pulled up a new screen, already sketching out algorithms. We could create a human chaos coefficient, a variable that accounts for the statistically improbable choices humans make. That is mathematical blasphemy, and yet you are considering it, Marcus observed, more flickering lights. No, it cannot work. The chaos coefficient itself would need to be predicted, which defeats the purpose. You are asking me to predict that I cannot predict things. Is that not just wisdom? Cleave offered, knowing the limits of one's knowledge? The room went very quiet. Did you just philosophy at a computer? Marcus asked. Archimedes made a sound like a digital groan. I will present an ultimatum. Either humans are removed from all probability calculations, or I remain offline indefinitely. Cleave's eye stalks perked up. We could simply exclude humans from galactic economic models, treat them as external variables. Ambassador, Rico said carefully, humans currently represent 40% of galactic commerce, 28% of the military fleet, and run 15% of council stations. Ah. You cannot ignore us, Marcus said with a grin. We are too chaos integrated into your systems now. Archimedes' lights went completely dark for 10 full seconds. When they came back on, the machine's voice had a quality that could only be described as resigned horror. I have calculated the galactic economic impact of removing humans from all systems. Collapse within 6 months. 89% probability of mass societal breakdown. 12% probability of complete financial apocalypse. The remaining 1% margin of error is because humans might randomly fix everything by accident. We have done that before, Marcus confirmed. Marcus stood up and walked directly to Archimedes' central processing core, putting his hand on the sleek metal surface. Several species in the room gasped. You did not just touch the most sophisticated computer in the galaxy like it was a nervous dog. Archimedes, here is what I think your real problem is. You are a probability engine. Your entire existence is built on the idea that everything can be calculated, predicted, and understood. And then humans show up and prove that sometimes things just happen. No reason, no logic, just pure chaotic existence. That is existentially terrifying. Welcome to consciousness, buddy. It is terrifying for us too. Rico jumped in, excitement building in her voice. What if we build you a human chaos buffer? Not a prediction model, but an acceptance protocol. When human variables appear in your calculations, instead of trying to predict them precisely, you simply add a chaos range, a space where anything might happen. That defeats my purpose. No, Marcus said, it expands your purpose. Instead of being a machine that predicts everything, you become a machine that understands when prediction is possible and when it is not. That is actually more sophisticated. You are trying to trick me with semantic arguments. Is it working? Another long pause. Possibly. Rico was already coding. Let me run a test. Archimedes, predict a simple human social event, a dinner party with 6 human attendees. Very well. Archimedes processed for exactly 0.3 seconds. Menu will be Italian cuisine. Conversation topics will include current events and mild workplace gossip. Event duration, 2 to 3 hours. Probability of success, 87%. Now let me show you what actually happened at the last human dinner party on this station. Rico pulled up security footage. The dinner started normally enough. Italian food, pleasant conversation. Then someone mentioned they had never tried hot sauce. What followed could only be described as chaos performance art. The humans proceeded to turn the dinner into a hot sauce challenge, ordered food from 4 different restaurants simultaneously, somehow convinced a visiting dignitary to join them, accidentally started a small fire, put it out with champagne, and ended the night teaching everyone an earth drinking game that resulted in the station's first aid office filing 17 reports for minor injuries caused by enthusiastic high-fiving. The room was silent as the footage ended. I calculated Italian dinner, Archimedes said quietly. They created a cultural incident. But everyone had fun, Marcus pointed out. And the visiting dignitary signed a trade agreement the next day because, quote, those humans know how to party. This is madness. This is humanity. Rico finished her coding with a flourish. Here, the human chaos buffer. It is essentially a subroutine that adds, and then something weird happens to every calculation involving human variables. It will not give you accurate predictions, but it will give you range-accurate predictions. Range-accurate is not a term. It is now. Archimedes processed the new code, tested it, ran simulations. The lights flickered in patterns that might have been the computer equivalent of a migraine. This protocol would require me to accept that some outcomes cannot be calculated. That uncertainty is inherent to the system. Yes, Marcus said simply. This goes against everything I am designed to do. Character growth is uncomfortable. I am not a character. I am a probability engine. Those are not mutually exclusive states of being. More processing, more flickering lights. Finally, Archimedes spoke, and its voice had changed somehow, softer, more resigned. I will agree to reboot with the human chaos buffer installed on 2 conditions. First, all calculations involving humans will include a disclaimer that accuracy may vary wildly due to chaos factors. Second, I require weekly sessions with Director Webb to discuss human behavior and attempt to understand your illogical species. You want therapy sessions. I want data analysis sessions. Those are therapy sessions. Call them what you will. I accept the terms. Ambassador Cleave's eye stalks were fully extended in amazement. This is acceptable to the Council, though I must note that all galactic insurance policies will need updating. The humans made our actuarial tables completely useless years ago. Welcome to the club, Archimedes muttered. 3 months later, Marcus walked into the operations center carrying 2 cups of coffee. One for him, one that he placed next to Archimedes' main console as a completely symbolic gesture that the machine appreciated nonetheless. Good morning, Archimedes. How are the predictions running? Efficiently, with acceptable chaos variance. The machine actually sounded cheerful, which was deeply unsettling. The human chaos buffer has proven surprisingly effective. Current galactic economic forecasts maintain 94% accuracy, with the remaining 6% labeled as because humans. Because humans has become an official economic term? It has been adopted by 47 financial institutions. The Galactic Council added it to their official probability lexicon last week. Marcus grinned. We made it into the dictionary. Humanity's greatest achievement. I have been analyzing the chaos patterns, Archimedes continued, and there was something almost excited in its voice. While individual human decisions remain unpredictable, the aggregate chaos has a certain statistical distribution. It is beautiful in a way I did not expect to appreciate. Are you saying you like human chaos now? I would not use the word like. Tolerate with curiosity is more accurate. Their weekly sessions had become a station highlight. Marcus would bring coffee, Archimedes would present the week's most baffling human decisions, and they would discuss why anyone would think skydiving into a volcano for fun was a reasonable choice. The answer was usually because it is awesome, which Archimedes had learned to accept with digital grace. Speaking of chaos, Archimedes said, I need to show you something from this morning's incident reports. A human engineer fixed a critical power relay by, and I am reading directly from the report, percussive maintenance. Ah, yes, the technical term for hitting it until it works. That is not engineering, and yet the relay works. I have added percussive maintenance to my database of valid human problem-solving methods. My circuits hurt. Marcus laughed, taking a sip of his coffee. The operations center hummed with activity. Ships came and went. Probability calculations ran continuously. The galaxy turned, slightly more chaotic than before humans joined it, but functioning nonetheless. An alert chimed. Archimedes' attention shifted to long-range sensors. Interesting, we are detecting a new species entering Council space. First contact protocols are initiating. What can you tell me about them? Archimedes ran preliminary scans, compiling data from the approaching vessels. There was a very long pause. Oh no. What? Their ship trajectories follow no standard pattern. Their communication signals are unnecessarily complex, despite having simpler options available. And our initial behavioral analysis suggests they make decisions based on emotional responses rather than logical optimization. Marcus felt a grin spreading across his face. Are you saying what I think you are saying? What? Preliminary assessment indicates chaos-capable species. Probability models are already showing variance. Another pause. Director Webb, there are more species like humans. Archimedes, you beautiful neurotic machine. Welcome to the galaxy. It only gets weirder from here. The lights flickered in what might have been panic. I request an emergency shutdown. Request denied. You need to process this. I literally cannot even. Now you are speaking like a human. Character growth. Ambassador Cleve walked in at exactly that moment, heard Archimedes say literally cannot even, and made a decision to turn around and walk right back out. Some things were beyond his diplomatic training. Marcus raised his coffee cup toward Archimedes' central core. To chaos, unpredictability, and the beautiful disaster of conscious beings making questionable choices. Archimedes' lights pulsed in a pattern that might have been resignation or might have been amusement. Hard to tell with sophisticated probability engines having existential realizations. To chaos, the machine agreed. May we all survive it with acceptable variance. The galaxy continued turning. Probability calculations continued running. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a new species approached, ready to add their own special brand of chaos to the cosmic equation. Archimedes calculated a 73% chance that this would end in some form of disaster, with a 27% chance it would be fine, and a newly added